doing something a little different today. I'm going to take you to the computer to show you some stuff that I'm going to be working on. I'm designing some stuff for using my Cricut machine, which is right there. Cute little teal thing. So June 14th, I turned 50. So I wanted to have at least one, maybe 2 t-shirts that I could wear that would be fun. I have a couple of inspirations here. So this one I really like. It says, in my feral 50s era. I'm not going with that one right away. So this was another one I really like. This is what 50 and awesome looks like. But I'd be able to wear that for like 1 year. There's this one that I really like, but I have plans to make it better because it says, stepping into my 50th birthday with God's grace and mercy. That's a 1-day shirt. You wear it on your birthday and then you're done. I don't want that. That's useless. That's stupid. So this is what it looks like. So I don't wear heels. So what I'm going to do is replace the heels with cowboy boots and sunflowers. And I'm going to change the saying to say, stepping into my 50s. So then I got 10 years to wear it, 9 years to wear it, with God's grace and mercy. And then I'm going to shift up the design and stuff a little bit. So in order for me to do that, I was going to just design the whole thing. But I thought what I'd do is I'm going to cut these boots out of this Merry Christmas, y'all. It's a heat transfer is what it is. And so I'm going to cut the boots out and use those. And then this way I don't have to search up boots or sunflowers or anything like that. And then I've got multiples of these sunflowers, so I might use 2 of them. And so I need to measure what these are. Actually, I might scan them in and measure them, and then that way I can put them in my design on the computer so I know exactly where they're going to be at instead of just doing placeholders. And then I'm going to play around with something I've never done before. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you noticed in the sunflower, where it's white on the inside, there's nothing there. So the fabric's going to actually show through. So I was thinking about doing some of the words that way as well, and then using these, which are acrylic paint markers, to paint in, like, of course, the sunflowers will be like shades of yellow. I'm going to have to make sure I have some spare pieces of fabric over here of this shirt to test the paints on. Everybody I've ever seen on YouTube says that acrylic markers work on fabric, and this even says that it works on fabric, but you have to wait almost 2 weeks to wash it, I guess, because it to help it to cure really well so it doesn't like fade or wash out. This is the t-shirt I'm going to use. I went to Goodwill and stuff and tried to find a different t-shirt because this one does have stains on it. Like you can see that one right there. I did stain treat it, but this is actually has been my work shirt, like doing yard work and stuff. What I need to do is scan in those boots and sunflowers and get proper measurements on them so I can place them in my file before I do my design. And then I need to decide, well, I guess this shirt would work to decide about how big it is. I think usually 10 inches is about what a lot of graphics are. I don't want it to be like way over here. That would look silly. So if I take this to this, yep, that's 10 inches. So 10 inches wide is a good point to have. And this is almost 12 inches tall. So 10 by 12. Got it. Let's go to the computer. Find some cowboy boots here. Okay, so what did I say? Width 10 inches, height 12. Create. There we go. Okay, I think I've got it. Now let's see if my web browser will show up. Yay! All right, so I need to find some boots that I can cut and it'll look okay. Preferably ones I don't have to pay for. Those are okay, but there's not much detail down here, which I guess I could paint those details in. Let's come up here and do free cowboy boots clip art. And, oh, those are cute. Well, that's Shutterstock. I guarantee you have to pay for those. Let's see. The one place I do like to go is unsplash.com. And cowboy boots illustration. And all I get is photos, even though I said illustration. Unsplash is a cool place to go to get photos, as long as you're not using them to sell items. Well, looky there. I haven't seen this site before. Tibixel. You guys are discovering with me. Cowboy boots, SVG images. See, this one's cool, but that heel does not look right at all. I kind of wanted like the back of the boots instead of this angle, but I'm probably not going to be able to be that picky. Okay, so do I like any of these really well? That one's actually kind of cool right here. Yeah, I think I like these. Now, let's see, how does this work? Okay, right. Download SVG, PNG. I'm going to do the PNG support on Patreon and skip the 10-second wait. Oh, you can pay money if you want to skip a 10-second wait. I can wait 10 seconds. So I'm doing the transparent background PNG because sometimes my Cricut doesn't like the SVGs so much. Oh, you can do an edit SVG. Oh, I don't want to edit on there. Okay. So I'll do the SVG as well, just in case. My son uses this computer, so that's what the background's all about. That is his character for the music that he writes and produces. He goes by Rep to Them. If you ever want to look up his music, let's put the rulers up there. 10-inch wide by 12-inch tall piece. So let's bring in the boots. And we're going to leave this one at 6 inches. Oh, come here. Follow me. That's really big, though. Now, do I want it on this side, which would probably look better, and then have the words over here? Or we can move it over here. Yeah, let's make those boots smaller. Let's go with 4 inches. Oh, but I don't want to make it so small that the details are not going to cut right. That's the problem with Cricut, is if you make it too small, it makes that vinyl really difficult to cut sometimes. All right, let's get some wording in there. Hello, text. Okay, stepping into my 50s. We'll start with stepping into my... I hate the Illustrator doesn't do the boxes anymore where you could just like whoop, grab hold of it and make it bigger that way. It's really annoying.
Okay, I do not like that font. It's just a boring Myriad Pro. Let's do... All right. 50s. But I want that to be a different font. Kind of like the Funky Dory. Let's go with 150 point on that font. Let's go bigger than that. Okay, so let's fill this with white and then do a stroke of black. So I take this, copy paste, and finish out the text with God's grace and mercy. That took a while. When my designer brain gets going, I just like, I don't know. I tweak and turn and twist and change and so anyway, I just got this very basic cross and the sunflower, and I got it to overlap the way I want it to. Hopefully it cuts out that way. Sometimes what you see on screen is not the way your Cricut's going to cut it. But I got my boots over here, and then I added just this little leaf down here because that empty space was bothering me. And then I had this with the first letters in each one capitalized, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, then my husband walks in. Let me show you. I'm going to change this back to a capital real quick. Stepping onto my 50s. I'm like, that's an I, not an O. He goes, well, it looks like an O. And then my son came in and I said, what does that say to you? He said, stepping onto. And I was like, oh, crap. So I went in and I tried to finagle this to make it look more like an I. And I got frustrated. And I'm like, why don't I just make it in lowercase? There you go. And so now it looks like an I. But now the big S is kind of bugging me. What's would that look like? Whoops, not A, S. Nope. It's got to stay a capital S. I think that's fine. Because if you were writing a sentence, that's the way you would do it anyway. And the width is not capitalized at all. So, and God's and then grace, mercy. Okay. So I think I'm liking where this is at. This has already been changed to outlines, I believe. So let me change all the type to outlines so we don't have any font issues. Okay, so now with these that are overcrossing, I'm going to have to make some changes. Boop. Let's take a look at that a little bit closer. See, otherwise it's going to cut this, and it's going to cut this little square out, and I don't want that at all. There. So I merged it together. So now that'll all cut out as one piece. So now I'm going to save this as my Illustrator file, but I'm also going to save it as an SVG, but also as a PNG, because for some reason, my Cricut likes to sometimes not accept SVGs, or it skews it and makes it really, really weird. One more thing I'm going to do real quick is change the size of this artboard. So this is 10. Let's make it 10 by 10. That way I know that everything is 10 by 10 so that when it pops over there, hopefully it'll show up correctly. So I want to take this and I want to align center. There. Had to group it all together first and then align center that way. There. Okay. So this is going to be a lot to weed out. Let us file export as. Let's do SVG to start. So that is the design that my shirt will be looking like, hopefully. And I'm planning to take those acrylic markers and possibly paint this sunflower and paint a little bit on the boots just to add some color. I'll probably paint the little leaf green, and then I'll probably paint the 50s something else. But I need to test that stuff on that t-shirt first.
All right, so I have these two browns, and I'm thinking the darker brown's going to look better. I know it's hard to see, there's a big old glare. But I think the coffee brown is just, I don't know, kind of a poo-poo color. I'm not happy with that. So I think I'll use the dark brown on the green shirt. And I have just enough to do this, so there's no screwing up allowed. But I first need to figure out what I'm going to do with cropping off this t-shirt. Okay, so I measured and cut off about 7 inches from the bottom. And I'll possibly put a ruffle at the end, I'm not sure. But I did discover, and remind you, this was a work shirt, there's holes in the armpits. So I'm going to have to fix those. And I'm thinking about shortening the sleeves too. I haven't decided yet. Make them a little more fun. And I'm probably going to cut like a V into the neck because this fits a little close to my throat and I don't like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the Cricut stuff and get that out. Weeding is not fun. And there's a lot of detail in the design that I've done. So let's move on to the Cricut stuff and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so I've laid my vinyl out shiny side down on the mat board. I don't need this big of a mat board because this is only a 10 by 10, but I didn't feel like getting my cutter out, so. The brand I like to use is 405. You can see it right there. And I honestly like it better than the Cricut brand for both the vinyl and the mats. I feel like it's just better quality all around, which is weird because usually the knockoff isn't like that. But I don't know. I've used the Cricut vinyl, iron-on stuff, and regular vinyl. The regular vinyl, I think, doesn't really matter. But I just feel like these boards are more sticky than the Cricut ones because I do have a smaller one that is Cricut. And then the vinyl itself for the iron-on, I feel like the iron-on works a lot better with this 405 brand. And it's cheaper. So, which I pick it up at Hobby Lobby. So, anyway, my Cricut machine is on. And I'm going to set this right here. And I'll go back to the computer and show you how I set that up.
Okay, so I have opened up my Cricut. It always asks you to do a free trial. No. Okay, and I always have to kind of remind myself how to do this because I don't do it very often. Ooh, that's cool. That's an E with, that's like Eve. That's pretty awesome. Antisocial butterfly. That's cute. Okay. Do 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 do. New project. Sorry, Mike, cut that little bit out. Okay, start here. New project. Clip. Iron-on t-shirts. And custom. Okay, so that should give me my design space, and I don't know why it's throwing this stuff up here. Okay. It's giving me 11.5 by 11.5, which is fine because mine's only a 10 by 10. So I need to upload over here so I can get my own file. Upload image. I'm just going to browse. A lot of times I'll drag the file, but I'm just going to browse. Desktop, mom stuff, birthday shirt, cut files. All right, I'm going to try the SVG, or should I just go ahead and do the PNG? Let's try the SVG and see what happens. Sometimes it distorts it and it just looks really, really bad. Like, where's my stepping into my... Let's hit continue and see if it shows up. No, it didn't. So let's cancel that. I don't know why it's so fussy about SVGs, because SVGs is what you're supposed to be able to use. Yeah, see how this is all messed up over here? Did I not make that into the right font? Maybe I didn't outline that font. That's probably what the problem is. See, now I'm curious. So let me go back in. Go back into Illustrator. Open my Illustrator file. See, there we go. That would be my problem. Let's take this type and create outlines. And now I have to do the merge or unite in Pathfinder to get those extra blue lines out. Okay, good thing I checked that. So that's probably where my issues have always been with the SVG files, is that I wasn't outlining my fonts. That makes sense. Okay, let's export as SVG. Okay, let's organize my folder here because that'll drive me nuts if I don't. Replace. And now I can just drag the file since I have this up here. Oh, there it is. So that's the key. Make sure your fonts are outlines. If you're designing in a different program and then importing, make sure your fonts are outlines. So you can do all this stuff over here. You can do stuff in Cricut design space, but you kind of have to pay for it to do a lot of the stuff that I like to do in here. Okay, so that looks okay. Crossing my fingers that this cuts the way I want it to. And it imported it as 9.82 by 9.41. So let's see. Whoops. If we can make this a little bit bigger. I wish I could just type in what I want. Maybe that, no, that's for the space. Here we go. 10. And it doesn't do it without skewing it. So you need to know your measurements because I haven't figured out how to do it uniform. Okay, 10 by 10. That's what we wanted. Looks okay. Let's see what happens. Let's hit make. Oh, save project. 50's birthday shirt with boots. Save. Ah! Where did everything go and what the heck? Oh my Lanta. See, now this is... Cancel. Okay, so I am not an expert in this program because I don't use it that often. There is a way, layers panel, that's what I need, group. So I've got all of it together and then you hit attach. Let's try that. it is. Okay. And it is backwards what it's supposed to be. You want that mirrored image because you're essentially cutting on the back side of the iron-on vinyl. I'm just going to leave the material size at 12 by 12, even though it's bigger than that. That's fine. And it's mirrored, basic cut. Okay, hit continue. My machine's already on, so it should find it. Yes, mirror is on. That gives you a little warning right there. And now I have to go to the machine and do the rest of it over there.
Okay, it's been several days since I started this video, but it's a good thing sometimes that life happens and gets in the way. But I started out with trying these paint markers, and I didn't like how the actual yellow looked on that. Where'd it go? There it is. Because it just blended in and turned green. So I was going to use the neon yellow for the sunflower, and then bronze, copper, things like that. Well, this got completely dry, and it's not terrible, but it has like a crusty feel to it, which changes the texture of the t-shirt. And so I'm not gonna go with that route, and you got to be careful because these will bleed straight through. In fact, there's some on my sewing desk over here that went through both layers of t-shirt. So I think these markers would be awesome on like a pair of canvas shoes you wanted to do artwork on, or even a jean jacket. I don't think the texture is going to bother either one of those. But for a t-shirt, it just feels scratchy, very scratchy. So I've come up with option 2, which is to put material behind the pieces that I want to be different. I mean, I could just iron it on the green shirt and boom, I'm done. That's not me. I need to be a little extra. So I came up with the materials I want to use. So this is my iron-on, I don't know what you will call it, my graphic. Let me tell you, don't do these graphics on the Cricut that have super tiny pieces, super thin pieces. I knew ahead of time that some of this would be very difficult, and I thought I might actually abandon the sunflower altogether. But I'm going to try to make it work. So this is the graphic, and I want something behind the cross, behind the sunflower, behind the boots, and behind the 50s. And so I picked materials out for all of it. I'm actually doing camo to go behind the cross. I know, a little unconventional, but... And I'm doing this goldenrod colored t-shirt to go behind the sunflower. So I came up with this kind of a cream color that will go behind the boots. So then the dark brown will actually show up really, really well on that. And then a touch of feminine, because that's kind of me. I'm not really feminine like girly girl. I'm not. But I like a touch of it every now and then. So I've got this floral fabric, and they're large florals, not a bunch of tiny ones. And that's going to go behind the 50s. I use this for another piece. And so I've got scraps that have the fusible web on there. So I'll have to figure out, do I want to add more fusible web so I can use different areas of this, or just use what it already has on there? I have 2 ways to approach this. I think I know which direction I'm going to go. So looking at this, I can't just place pieces on the shirt and put this over it, because then it's going to like bleed off and look kind of weird. I just want the material, the patterns behind the specific pieces, not like there's a block here and the 50s happens to be on that block. So I want it to look framed within the graphic. 2 ways I thought of was to cut the plastic a little bit here and there around where the graphic is at, that I want to have a piece of material backed on, and then use a heat erasable pen to make those marks on the t-shirt, and then sew that fabric on that spot and hope that I hit it right. And well, the first thing I need to do is I need to print on regular paper the exact size of these graphics that I want to have backing on, and then I can cut that out of the paper and use that as a template to cut out the material. Because I've got a very thin line as to where that material needs to stop. So after doing that, then if I did the whole thing of cutting just a little, like cutting the corner, the cross, like all the corners and maybe some outside pieces, and then drawing lines there with the erasable pen, then I can kind of position that camo piece right there and sew it onto the shirt. And do that for the sunflower, the 50s, and the boots. The other option that I thought of was, after I cut out the material and the shapes that I need, go ahead and match them up on this, because this clear part is very sticky. So I could go ahead and match them up on the back side of this, so that those different color blocks are already in place. And then lay this down on the t-shirt where I want it, and then iron it on like you're supposed to, and then peel this piece off, the plastic part off, and then in order to make that color block stay, each one of them, I would go in and hand sew in between where the Cricut stuff is. But like for the cross, I would probably sew, there's like the thicker outer and then this thinner piece on the inside. I'd probably sew between those two to help hold that camo piece of fabric on the t-shirt. And then I could also do different patterns like embroidery or something if I wanted to, but to hold that fabric on. And I could do some fun stuff with the sunflower, little stitches, like even little X's, just something to hold it on there. The boots, I could make it look like actual stitching, like what would be on the boot. And I think that's the direction I'm going to go first I got to print out these little graphics on paper, make sure they're the exact size, and then I can use those as templates to cut out my material. So let me get that print out taken care of. It may take me a few shots, but we'll get it done. Okay, so here's what I did. It took 3 tries. Printed out at 100% and it wasn't big enough. Then I printed out at 105. It was just a hair too big. So this is at 104%. So I taped this down because I've learned that sometimes the Cricut stuff can suck it right up onto it. And I don't want it to stick on it. And then I just kind of hovered this over it really as close as I could without touching it. And it lines up almost perfectly. I would say really pretty close to perfect. So what I'll need to do is cut the outline very carefully of these boots, and then I can use that as a template to cut out the material that I'm going to use behind the boots. So I've got enough printed out. When I printed out the boot side, I still got the 50s out of that. So that one's really going to be hard to cut because I have to cut the outside, and then on the 0 I'm going to have to cut out that inside as well because I don't want that to be filled in. And so now I need to just shift it so I can cut out the sunflower and the cross. Saved you the pain of seeing me cut all that stuff out. I did show you briefly of me cutting out the fabric for that goes behind the boots. Here's what I decided to do. I decided to put the material I had for the 50s part. Already had the fusible web on the back, or I guess what it's called is, I just had it, there it is. Heat and bond, soft stretch heat and bond. Had this for a while, a long while. I don't know if 93 has anything to do with it or not. I doubt it's $7.49 at Hobby Lobby anymore either. But I decided to put that on the back of all the material. That way it's got a little bit of something to hold it onto the shirt. I'm still probably going to do some hand stitching or maybe a little machine stitching after I iron this on. So I'm trying to keep this on where I want it, which they're not sticking that great, probably because my fingerprints are all over this from handling it so much and making sure that what I did was what I need. And if it overlaps and comes out of the brown Cricut material a little bit. I really don't care at this point. I think it'll give it some character, right? Okay. So now I need to peel the backing off of the heat and bond, which hopefully I can do that without all this moving around. And I'm really, really hoping that this material will stick so that when I flip it over, I won't have a bunch of troubles. But it is me, so there probably will be a bunch of troubles. Okay, hopefully the sunflower doesn't come off because I've got it marked here as to where it goes. But once this piece of paper comes off, that does not exist anymore. And I'm sorry if you guys can't see this really, really well, but I need to make sure that I'm not straddling a tripod trying to do this or I will screw up. This part that I showed you where I cut out the boot and everything, on camera, I screwed it up, so I had to redo it. That's why the camera is up high on the desk and nowhere near where I need to be. So I'm hoping this works because this is overlapping. I think it'll be okay. This will be the thickest part, but I think it'll be fine. I figured this way the heat and bond will hold it in place on the shirt until I can get my hand sewing in there. I would never personally trust heat and bond to hold permanently for something. I always stitch afterwards. It's nice to use if you're putting appliques, like you're cutting out pieces of flowers or butterflies or something from a curtain or something and putting it on another piece. It's nice to hold it in place before you sew it so that it doesn't shift on you when you're trying to sew it on there. So this way the Cricut material is going to attach to these color block pieces, and the color block pieces will attach to the t-shirt. Usually I have a template that I use to put around my collar to find the middle, but as you can see, this shirt is not made properly whatsoever. It's just a cheap old shirt. So I'm going to eyeball this as best as I can. Usually I would measure and make sure, but when I've got all this extra stuff on here, oh, I like how this looks. I probably will measure just a little bit just to be safe, because I can adjust that if I need to. It's kind of hard because it's like, where exactly is the middle on this? Because the artwork's kind of off a little bit. So the boots are about 6.5 inches in. So I've got my Cricut heat press, which is now yelling at me because I didn't use it right away. 265, 11 seconds. I usually go more than that. That's just me. Okay. So I'll take this, try to cover the entire thing, press down, hit the timer, and it'll count down for me automatically. That's the temperature, not the timer. Alright, did I cover the whole thing? I feel like the boots probably need a little more. So I'm going to turn it this way. Push play again. Again, it says to do it at 265 for 11 seconds and then you're done. I'm not that trusting. And then I'll come on this side and do it again. Alright, do not do this on your cutting mat because it doesn't take the heat. Now that's all bubbly. Okay. Not what I intended to do, and last time I did this, I thought about taking the mat off and I did, and it worked. And today, I didn't think about that. So now I'm going to carefully peel this. Hopefully don't have a bunch of trouble. Yeah, see, that's not... Okay. So what I'm probably going to have to do is take this, turn it inside out, and press on the inside to get the heat and press to work. But I'm not going to do it on my cutting mat. So sit back, relax, enjoy yourselves. I'll be back in a little bit. Okay. That was a little treacherous. Part of the issue is the Cricut material is a hot peel material. So you need to peel that plastic off while it's still warm. The other stuff, the heat and bond, needs to be ironed on, A, with steam, and B, it needs to be cooled off before you peel it. So I got it. It looks great. It looks awesome. I absolutely love it. I'm definitely going to need to hand sew to keep this stuff all on for sure. So I am probably not going to bore you guys with all that because I'll have to go in and sew it while sitting on the couch and all that stuff. And what I'm going to do probably is get one of our rings that we use for cross stitch, and that way the shirt will be kept taut. It'll be a lot easier to sew in and out with a taut top. I don't know. Like with this cross, I think I'd be able to get away with using the sewing machine and going in between those lines and then maybe like down the middle here. I don't know if I should try that. So yeah, I'll probably hand sew it. I'm not going to drag you guys along for that. But I'm going to do some other things to it as well. I'll cut the sleeves probably a little bit shorter, and I'm probably going to cut a little bit of a V-neck into it. Because this collar's, it's a little high on my throat for me. And being a t-shirt, it's not really going to fray, so I wouldn't necessarily have to sew hems on the bottom and on the sleeves. So we'll check it and try it on and see if I want to do hems or not. I may not. Okay, it's done. I know this thing is taking like several days over. But that's okay. It's still ready ahead of time of my birthday. So it is good to go. I ended up cutting the neck, the collar out completely. Remember how I showed you at the beginning that this thing is so poorly made? The collar was super crooked. So I tried to put the V in there, which is a very small one now since I cut the collar off. But I did everything you're supposed to find the middle and then cut it. And it was crooked as all get out. So that's what I ended up doing. And I decided to leave the edges raw, like the bottom part is raw and the arms and around the neck. Let me back you up just a little bit. There we go. Just trying to show you how it falls. It actually fits very nicely. I don't want to back up into my wall here, but it actually fits very nicely. And I cut just the perfect amount off of the bottom. I'm thrilled with that. It is great. And I love the shorter sleeves. It's nice. It gives me plenty of room. It doesn't feel as heavy when it's got that seam that's on there. And I fixed the underarm holes. So that worked out really well. And then you're probably not going to be able to see it really well, but I did put stitching around all of the edges of the extra fabric that I did. I showed my husband. He's like, where did you stitch at? I'm like, good. You don't see it. I'm so happy. I can't wait to wear it. I love it. It is so cute. Anyway, I finally finished this video. Now I get to hand it off to my husband to edit, which I'm sure he's gonna be like, oh my gosh, what did you do? Because I've got all those videos where I was on the computer showing you guys me making this design. He's gonna hate going through that footage. I'm sorry, honey. But anyway, I'm glad you guys were here for this. It took a lot longer than I expected it to, but I really am thrilled with how it turned out. I think I would have been really disappointed had I used those acrylic pen paints. I think it would have looked like a grade school project, but I really like having put the different colored fabrics and different patterned fabrics underneath the Cricut. I think it turned out great. I'm really excited. I can't wait to wear it. And since it says 50s and not just like 50th birthday like the original one did, I can wear it more than one day. Can't wait. I love the sage green. I love how comfortable it feels. I mean, it's roomy enough but not oversized to where it looks too big. It's perfect. I love it. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you got inspired by this and got some ideas rolling in your head, because that's the point of this whole channel, is to inspire you. It's not a, I'm an expert, you should do it like this. No, it's not what it's about. It's about inspiring you guys to get creative with using things that are already around you or that were once discarded by somebody else, and then you can remake it into something better. So, until next time, keep on sewing.